President, ladies, distinguished guests, good morning. You are in for a thoroughly informative and entertaining program this morning. Our speaker, Erik Hastings, was raised in Iowa, and by the age of 17, had honed his creative skills and was already a successful radio personality. At the age of 14, he had the lead performance in the international tour of Peace Child, a powerful musical about war from a child's point of view. His interest in travel may have been sparked during this production as they spent 6 weeks in the Soviet Union on tour. In 2005, Erik launched his own production company that specialized in creating high-quality, low-cost travel videos for online distribution. His impressive client roster included the Greenbrier Resort, which many of us here are very familiar with. His face and contagious enthusiasm for travel were unveiled to numerous households in April of 2018 with the premiere of his series, Beyond Your Backyard. It is a nationally syndicated 30-minute educational travel adventure series that highlights destinations that visitors can travel to with ease. Each episode digs deep to educate consumers on the history, the culture, delicious food, famous attractions, as well as the off-the-beat special haunts that a lot of the locals favor. Erik's down-to-earth approach and his humor, warm, engaging style appeals to his audience. He totally immerses himself in the experience at hand. I invite you to watch his segment on Chicago. While learning to make Vienna sausages, Erik dressed the part in the infamous hot dog costume. I encourage you to go to PBS. It depends on your zip code. For me, it's a Comcast Channel 201. It's usually Tuesday and Thursday nights. Right now, they're getting ready for a new series. He'll tell you about that. But you can also live stream pbs.org, you'll have a lot of fun. Erik, the travel guy, as he named himself, now spends an average of 30 weeks, yes, you heard me, 30 weeks traveling. In fact, he comes to us today fresh from a cruise to the Caribbean, and his April schedule will include a trip to Oklahoma, back to Virginia to Stanton, and followed by a Norwegian cruise. You will find that Erik has an uncanny ability to make the mundane seem exciting as he brings to life some unique experiences in our very own backyards. Erik's mission is to get us traveling more while also keeping us closer to home. When he's not traveling, he can be found in his beloved New York, enjoying the theater, music, and restaurants, as well as spending precious time with his 2 young daughters. And yes, they already have a touch of the travel bug as they're working on Dad to take them to Hawaii and Niagara Falls. So at this time, I hope that Erik will inspire us to get packing, and if we're lucky enough, he might even break out in song as he still knows every word to You Got Trouble from Music Man. Please join me in giving a warm Tuckahoe welcome to the travel guy, Erik Hastings.
You're very sweet.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh,
Good
my
luck.
God. Yeah, right. He's throwing me to the wolves like that. I don't know who that guy is that we're introducing, but he sounds amazing. Is he going to be here next week? Oh, I can't wait. Ladies, Gentlemen, a couple of us, thank you, by the way, for letting me come and hang out and talk with you about something that most of you know a lot about, which is travel. I thought a lot about this get-together today and what we were going to cover, because I think we booked this gig, when I was 16. So I think I had a lot of time to go over the notes. It's actually kind of a joke. We were like, what? And then the more we learned, the more our organization learned more about your organization. What's funny to me is that I began to think, oh my gosh, I could learn more from this group than you could ever learn from me. So I was like, maybe we should just cycle through each one of us and just, because again, well, all right. So I do have notes. I'm going to refer to them from time to time. Otherwise, this thing's going to go off the rails so quick. Well, I can't help. I promise not to swear. I don't want to be offensive. I understand I get excited, and I think one of the reasons I get excited about coming and hanging out is because, well, I want to let you in a little secret. I might actually be the luckiest person on the planet. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, because frankly, I'm not that smart. I'm not that well read. I am not. The list is long, friends. But because I get the opportunity every day to go out and experience travel. And we say this word travel like it's, lunch. And for me, lunch, very important. You don't get to have a waistline this size without putting some effort into it. And I'm happy to do so, one piece of fried chicken at a time. No, try this. It's delicious. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to try it. But again, we go back and talk about this word that is so meaningful and so powerful to me. It's interesting to hear an introduction, and every time I hear an introduction like that, A, it makes me terribly uncomfortable, as I'm sure it would you, and B, it also reminds me that in my relatively short life, I stopped coloring my hair just because I just don't care anymore, that I have seen and been and engaged in so many amazing experiences that I love to get to come and talk about them. And what's funny to me is in talking with you, and I think maybe I've talked to 10 members between last night and tonight, maybe even closer to 15. And you start to hear things like, oh, well, this trip, I love this trip because, and I went to this thing because, and we did this. And you see the face just light up because right now, as we speak, there are people all over the world that are having their lives changed forever because of travel. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. And so traveling for work versus traveling in my personal life, of course, is a terribly different set of disciplines. And frankly, traveling for work is, well, how would you like to go on vacation and have 3 cameramen filming everything you do? It's terrible. Every bite of food you take, every time you slip on a rock, every time you trip on a piece of thing. I mean, this is what I do for a living every single week. But one of the things that I happen to really enjoy about that is that on every trip I go, I learn something new. As you all know, you learn the unexpected. I'm always surprised. And again, a lot of times people think that I spend a good deal of my time doing more of the trips that you do than more of the trips I actually do, which is Boone, North Carolina, Little Rock, Arkansas, Muskogee, Oklahoma. We take trips, these marquee places, just to say that we do them because that's what people think I do all day. Oh, this week I'm in Hong Kong, that week I'm in Cairo. It's not exactly like that. In all seriousness, I can't remember. When did we book this? This get-together was almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago. In 2017, I was working with the Greenbrier. I had gone down there. Again, the recurring themes that you're going to hear, there's certainly an analogous situation with travel itself. It's It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of planning. But there's certainly a lot of faith that has gone on in my life. And sometimes, as you all know, when you take that leap of faith, you unlock these, whatever it may be on any given moment, these life-changing moments that really speak to your soul. And so from a career track, I had made a decision essentially in 2014 that I really, really wanted to help people see the world and help change the world. And I think there's certainly and again, coming to speak to you, I really am in awe. And I really want to thank you for participating in travel. And it means so much to me because you may be having a great time, as you should be. Maybe you're on a cruise. Maybe you're in a far-off place. Maybe you're closer to home. It doesn't really matter. The point is you're taking the time, energy, and money to participate in one of the biggest industries in the world. You're directly or indirectly supporting local economies that live or die based on whether or not American Eagle decides to fly there seasonally. You know? But you're doing it. And I absolutely think that that is one of the coolest things in the entire world. So if you don't mind, could we just have a round of applause for every vacation you've taken this year alone? Thank you very much. And I'm serious about that. And the reason I'm serious about it is because I'm the one that goes and talks to the waiters and talks to the housekeepers and interviews them and listens to the tourism officials and listens to the airline folks and the cruise people and the hoteliers and the B&B owners and the tour operators, the ground handlers, the museum curators. I talk with all of them. And they all say the same thing. We wouldn't exist without people actually coming to visit. So it is true, as we talked about in the intro, I am on a mission to get more people traveling more often, staying longer, and experiencing the potentially life-changing positive power of travel. And so it starts to make a little more sense when I say I might be the luckiest person on the planet, because yes, we can sit here and talk about, what's your favorite place? It's one of my favorite questions. I get it all the time, and I never have a really good answer, as some of you experienced. But again, we can talk places, we can talk about tips. But I thought real quick I would tell you, I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. We talked about that. I wanted to be Johnny Carson when I grew up. That was one of my heroes. I wanted to be Jack Benny. I can't believe I'm old enough to know who Jack Benny is. But he was a master, and Johnny learned from Jack, among others. So when I moved to New York, I made a decision to move to New York City because of that Soviet Union trip. When I was off to Russia, we spent time in Moscow and then went down to the Black Sea to the largest pioneer camp in the country, which is essentially their Boy Scout camp, 10 kilometers long along the Black Sea. And it was up on the mountainside. And we went in August, and it was hot. And so you would walk downhill to the Black Sea from the dormitories to cool off in the water, and then have to walk back uphill, and you'd be hot again. That's what we did for 6 weeks. The show we did 6 performances a day in a theater, that was about this size, but it was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was a red carpeted theater. It had a red grand piano in it. And we did a 90-minute show, 4 to 6 performances a day, all in Russian, and singing and dancing and all of that. And we flew back through New York. And, as I begin to age, we're all aging. Like, it's going to happen in this hour, whether we like it or not. And really, there's only one trip on the old merry-go-round. So, when people say, I don't know if I want to travel, why not? Why wouldn't you? Really, your life is so incredibly interesting and exciting in your little small orb that you don't want to do anything else? How could that be? Nevertheless, we flew back through New York, and that was when, going to the Schubert Theater and seeing the original company of a chorus line and going, okay, this is where I wanted to live forever. And, even to this day, I have small children. I have an ex-wife, again, the luckiest person on the planet. No, she's lovely. What are you talking about? We're friends. We are. Well, you have to be. But I fly out of LaGuardia a lot of times, and you come across the RFK bridge, and some of you know exactly where I'm talking about, and you make this big right-hand turn, and Lower Manhattan and Midtown kind of spreads out to your left. And I always said that if that view ever got old to me, that I would move, because there's absolutely no reason to live in New York City if you didn't absolutely love it. And so I do, and it has never gotten old. I'm going to do it today. I'll fly into LaGuardia. It'll be 6:30, 6:40. The sun's going to start to set, and it's going to be a clear sky. I know it already, and it's not even noon, and I look forward to that. I think, however, as I age, I also, just as a point of context, I don't think I could go to an office every day in New York City. And so now that I travel as much as I do, I get a little taste of Virginia. I love this state. I have been to this state. I travel throughout this state, all over this state, but I love all of them. And so, again, when we talk about these themes about where are you going and why are you going there, I think it's really important to recognize, as some of you do, and I would dare to say most of you, travel is very personal. And so, we began working in travel in 2006, really, with the idea that show me what the place feels like through video, right? That's a real thing. I wasn't so much interested in the things to do at that time or how to get there. I was more interested in what does New Orleans feel like? You walk down those streets, you go into the Garden District and you see that architecture. What do you feel? And how do we translate that for a viewer and take it from what we feel through the cameras, through post-production, and onto television or onto the internet, whatever it was, to help a viewer say, I want to feel that. I want to do that. And that is something that I'm extremely proud to say we do very well. And when I say we, I happen to work with the greatest production crew in the world. Now, I haven't worked with every single person in the world, but I'm going to go ahead and flat out say I wouldn't want to travel with anybody else other than these men and women who help us get out of our own way and work us through the logistics and really get to the heart of what we're talking about. So I'm happy to stand up here on their behalf, but there are a number of people that see to it we make this programming. Since this booking of our visit today, as I said, we started in short form, but PBS called. PBS, like the gold standard of television programming, and said, we saw some of the short videos that you make, and we would like you to come and talk with us and tell us if you'd like to make a long-form show. And I said, sure, I'm happy to do it. And I sat with the general manager of one of our presenting station, Blue Ridge PBS in Roanoke, right here in our home state, and the GM, their executive producer, and their program director, and myself, and our executive producer. And they said, what kind of show do you want to make? And I said, you know what I'd like to make? I'm not actively interested in anything. I'm passively interested in everything. So, which is kind of true. I said, one of the first trips we did was to the state of Mississippi. We worked with the State Tourism Office. The State Tourism Office of Mississippi said, Erik, we really want you to showcase what the state has to offer. It's Mississippi, number 50 on every list ever created, right? I said, fine. And by their own admission, this wasn't me saying this. I don't editorialize on these things. I'm like, oh, well, great, Mississippi, sure, why not? So I flew into Memphis, and I stayed a couple of days in Memphis. And I went to Graceland, which I had not done before. I stayed at the Peabody Hotel, and I saw the Ducks, as most of you have seen, and went to Sun Studios, where Elvis did his first recording. And, of course, I had dinner, I had barbecue by myself. I was traveling alone at the time. And so I had dinner and ran into 8 crazy Australians, which that's what you'll find. As you know, when you travel, you'll find Germans and Australians in every corner of the world. I don't know if they work or not, but that's who you run into. I don't do an Australian accent, but they said, oh, well, come hang out with us. And I was like, this looks like a terrible idea. So, of course, I did it, And back in the day, that's back when you actually took pictures on a phone. Remember those days, So we had dinner together. They took me to Beale Street. I since had the pictures developed. I kid you not. the pictures of this group of people having a phenomenal time, the pictures got blurrier and blurrier and blurrier, and it was flashes of light with these Australians. And so that was my Memphis. And so the next day I got up and drove to, I think we started in Tunica, Mississippi, and kind of did this big loop. We did the entire state in about 10 days. And one of the places we went was Tupelo, Mississippi. Of course, the birthplace of Elvis. There was the house and the whole. Listen, Elvis, I take it or leave him. I don't have a personal connection to Elvis. I don't listen to the Elvis channel on Sirius XM. I appreciate his talent. But whatever. It's Elvis Presley, for heaven's sake. So we went, but then we went to the hardware store where Elvis, as an 8-year-old, wanted to buy a gun for a birthday present for himself. And his mom was like, that's not such a good idea. Why don't we get you a guitar? And that hardware store still exists. The actual counter, those old glass counters, just beautiful piece, still exists. And I was really moved by that. I didn't realize how much I was moved by that until that show was over. We sweat our way all the way through Mississippi in August. By the way, when I work, I have 3 shirts. Everywhere I go, I carry 3 of the exact same shirt with me because we sweat through them. I mean, you all are invited, by the way. Anybody who wants to come on the road and shoot with us sometime and see like the shenanigans that go on to make it look so pretty and lovely, because we don't manufacture these things. We don't do things in front of a green screen. We aim to capture truly the soul of a place, which means, once again, you have a little faith that you might find the soul of the place if you go looking. And by the way, as you know, there is no substitution for going there. So you actually have to show up and walk around and go, oh, that's what this place is about. This is how my feet feel on this brick-lined street versus that brick-lined street somewhere else. The smells, the sights, everything. So I went to Las Vegas to do a speaking engagement right afterwards. And it was at the Hilton, which coincidentally was the last public performance that Elvis Presley gave. I went to Los Angeles thereafter, which I cannot stand Los Angeles. I am a New Yorker through and through. I was at the Lowe's Santa Monica Hotel. Has anybody stayed at this beautiful property out there? Gorgeous. I was facing the water. It was 5:30 in the morning. I'd been there for 3 days. I was on the phone with a friend of mine in New York, and I'm like, this place sucks. I got to get out of here. I got to get back home. I don't like L.A. And he said, how'd the trip go? And I said, it went fine. We made all these wonderful videos. I said, but I've been on sort of an all Elvis trip my whole trip for some reason. And I explained as I just did what we did. And he said, well, that sounds like that's a TV show. And I said, it is a TV show. I would watch that show. I would watch 30 minutes on Memphis and Tupelo and Las Vegas and walk in the very footprints of Elvis Presley. And that's the show that I pitched PBS. Sacked the juggler. And PBS looked at me and said, because again, not just Elvis, Babe Ruth, Al Capone, Marilyn Monroe, the very place, the very store that Marilyn Monroe walked in a brunette and walked out a blonde still exists in Los Angeles. You can go there. It's a toy store now, but nevertheless, if that's your thing, you can do it if you want. I don't know why you would, but some people do. And I got to thinking, that is a show that I want to do. And PBS looked at me and they were like, that's kind of a big show. That's kind of a network show. And I said, yeah, okay, whatever. And they said, do you have a smaller show you could start with? And I said, yes. I said, I would draw the conclusion that, much like the point we made earlier, that all of these phenomenal experiences from all over the world, some of them can be found closer to home. And so we'll call it something like out your kitchen window, or just beyond the horizon, or beyond your backyard is what we settled on. And it really has a geographic focus of North America, where we go to these places that are not necessarily marquee, but in the same token, places like the Grand Canyon and places like Quebec City and places like Cozumel, Mexico, and just these places they go, oh, right, it's so close, and yet we're not doing it because we get so wrapped up in these, who doesn't want to go on a Viking cruise for 9 weeks? I mean, I do. It sounds great. Well, whatever. You can't take it with you, so you might as well just give it to Viking. They're doing fine. or AMA, or whatever. I love AMA. AMA's another company. Nevertheless, so that is the show that we did. We do 13 episodes per season. Our first season kicked off last fall. We became nationally syndicated last winter. Today is the kickoff of our second season, which will be fed to stations at 4 o'clock this afternoon, one per week for the next 9 weeks in our second. Then we are just finishing our 13 episodes for season 3. We just got back from that carnival trip down to the Caribbean. So when I say I'm exceedingly proud and excited to talk about travel, it's because I actually do it, and we get to do it on PBS. And to me, that's a pretty cool thing. So yes, you can watch it on pbs.org, and then it's on all your stations close by. So that's a little bit about this show. Are we done? Is that it? Oh, no, okay, good. Now I have notes. All right, so if you don't know what we do, so all of this has happened because of our short form videos. And rather than play our little introduction, Ryan, I thought we would play a little piece of Cozumel, Mexico. This is a little 3-minute little snippet that we made less than a year ago. So do I need to do anything else other than be quiet? No. Okay, I will be quiet and take a look. Here's a little Cozumel, Mexico. I love it when a plan comes together.
I'm Erik, the travel guy. Today, we're stepping off the mainland and into an island paradise. This is Cozumel, Mexico.
Pack your bags and take a sun-soaked break to this legendary Mexican destination. Cozumel will delight you and yours with crystal blue waters to play in, charming towns and villages, ancient civilization ruins, amazing food, lots of hotels and resorts in which to choose from, and some of the best scuba diving in the world. San Miguel is the largest town on the island. That's where the international airport is and the 2 cruise ports. If you need a place to stay, I have 3 suggestions: the all-inclusive Iberostar Cozumel, the Westin Cozumel, or the Intercontinental. All 3 will take excellent care of you during your stay.
Now, Fifth Avenue in New York City looks one way, but Fifth Avenue here in Cozumel, well, it looks like this. So I say pick up a little silver, perhaps a sombrero, and an excellent cup of coffee.
Step inside for an expertly prepared latte or my new favorite, iced coffee, to fuel the day. Fifth Avenue is a walkable street closed to vehicular traffic and runs parallel to the main thoroughfare along the shoreline. Cool shops and little cafes are not to be missed. Within walking distance, you'll find my favorite restaurant, La Mission. It's a family-owned business serving authentic recipes that are just out of this world. And the music's pretty good too.
All right, by now, some of you may have some questions. Don't worry, I have answers. For instance, is the water safe to drink here? Well, the short answer is the water is probably not going to hurt you here in Cozumel. But remember, the water is treated for contamination just like it is back home. But the microorganisms found in this water may not be the exact ones you're used to back home. So the bottom line is, I always drink bottled water when I'm in Mexico. Oh, so refreshing. It's nice.
From drinking it to getting into it, Cozumel offers every water sport you can imagine, from parasailing, snorkeling, beach lounging, and the list goes on and on. The beaches on the west side of the island tend to be more popular and a little more developed, whereas the east side is gorgeous and a bit on the rustic side. But don't just splash around on the surface, dive deep.
While we're on the subject of water, it's worth noting that Cozumel is world famous for scuba diving. Now, if you're like me and you've never scuba before, well, let me show you just how easy it is. You know, you can be trained to dive to certain depths in less than an hour. But here's a tip. You've got to research a company that has the highest safety and sanitary standards. That's why we've made a stop at Cozumel Marine World.
Scuba is a must here in Cozumel, even for a beginner like me. I love the guys at the shop, the lesson was easy to understand, and the dive itself was one I'm never going to forget. Oh yes, I'll be back. You may or may not be interested, but I love learning things when I'm on the road. And here in Cozumel, you'll find history, Mayan history to be exact. The ruins of San Gervasio are a must-do for a quick lesson on the life and times of a civilization long since gone, but not forgotten.
Authentic Mayan culture, the crystal blue waters of the Caribbean, and world-class scuba diving. The answer is yes. You need to book your next vacation to Cozumel, Mexico. Did we have fun? We have fun? Yes. I'm Erik, the travel guy. Thanks for watching.
can't believe I get paid to do it. I'm like, really? We've made thousands of those, literally all over the world. And again, I think I was thinking about what could I possibly impart to this group that you don't already know, which is why I'm totally excited about questions, because I always learn things from that. But I would remind you that no matter where you are in your life, and certainly with the kids and the grandkids and the so-and-so, I would encourage you to always be planning your next trip. It sounds almost trite to say, today could be the day, and if that's it, so be it. But if today's not going to be the day, are you planning? That way you're planning, and you're going, and you're continuing to learn. And I don't necessarily spend a lot of my time thinking about educational trips, because education is only one driver. I think of our audience, I have a lot more respect for our audience in that my job is to help them get off the couch and into these trips, and education is only one of those reasons to go. Culinary, history, a little bit of culture, a little bit of the arts, a little bit of performing arts, a little bit of travel logistics, a little bit of those emotional storytelling, a little bit of that. So it's this careful blend, but that's what we do for a living, and then you see that magnified on your trip. So that's one of the things that I would tell you to continue to do. Look, that's, at the end of the day, that's part of, and a very big part of, what we do. Travel can be very difficult. The logistics of it. It's certainly internationally it can be. Look at the visa requirements now for the EU for 2021. Whether or not you're involved in and are a member of Global Entry, that would be something I would tell you. If you don't have a Global Entry card, get one. Yes, you have to give information to the government. Yes, so be it. But nevertheless, I don't like to stand in 5-hour immigration lines either. So I'll go ahead and give them my fingerprints. Same thing with TSA PreCheck. I would invite you to remember there's a lot of those things too, going into these items, making sure the passport's done. All of that stuff you guys are really good at doing. Therefore, I would question, why are you going? If the children and the grandchildren aren't visiting enough, then maybe it's time to plan another trip to see them. Maybe you sponsor another one of those trips to help. It's your call. But again, travel is very personal, so I would tell you, why not go anywhere that you want to go? And therefore, getting that group involved. And I would also encourage you to stay a little closer to home and take mini trips. They don't always have to be the 2-week long, the week long, the 2-week and 3-week long extravaganzas, which if you can do, yes, you should continue to do. But 4 days, I was just in St. Pete, Clearwater, and learned more about the murals and more about Salvador Dali than I had ever learned in the past. It's the largest collection of his work in the United States outside of Spain. Is in St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida. It's right. Some of you have been there. Has anyone been there? Been to this museum? It's breathtaking, right? And I know nothing about this artist, but I learned a lot in the 2 hours I spent there. And this happens a lot to me, where I find out that we're there for 2 hours, and then I'd like to be there all day, and then of course we can't, and then we have to go home. But the downtown murals down there, I mentioned Grand Canyon, Yosemite Park. Even if all you did was national parks, I'm sort of a nature light kind of guy. Like I don't need to camp. My idea of camping is like a motor home with air conditioning. So but again, you start getting the juices flowing. Oh, right, back to New York City, back to Chicago. You do realize the brownie was invented in Chicago. The brownie, right? Did anyone know this? I learned this like a year ago, right? Yeah, okay, right? So, and why was the brownie invented? Because the wife of either the hotel owner or manager, I can't remember, was it the Palmer House? I think it's the hotel, wanted to bring something to the ladies to the World's Fair, something that could travel, a dessert. And the chef came up with this chocolatey so-and-so and said, here you go. The brownie was invented right there. You can go and have one. They celebrated. It's the coolest thing. I'm not even a big brownie fan. I was eating it up like a crazy person. I'm like, these are the things, nonstop, day. Oh, and I'll tell you this. So this, we call that short form. That's short form, 3 minutes, who, what, when, where. The first short form video that we ever made was in Detroit, Michigan. And the thinking was, hey, look, Detroit, It's pretty much a crap box, so we think. I can't say that. Forgive me. Right? That's what people think, right? And then you show up and realize, oh, wait. The world-class museums they have in Detroit. The sports teams, take it or leave it. I don't care about that. But fine, they're very proud of the sports. And then you go out to the Henry Ford Museum. How many of you have been to this situation? So we're doing the Henry Ford. We're in the Model Ts, which is amazing to begin with. But what really struck me on that trip was we're going around and saying, no, over here, this is the John F. Kennedy vehicle. And then and I said, I'm sorry, which one? What? And, oh, well, that's the one that he was assassinated in. We can't touch it, but it was right there. It wasn't behind glass. I was like, it's there. Oh, yeah. And then over here, this is Rosa Parks' bus. And then this is, I'm like, what? What? The bus, Rosa Parks. You can go in it. You can sit down. They will, as you have done. But I think what really got me on that was Abraham Lincoln's chair from the Ford Theater is there. Really? The chair? I'm like, and I actually said to the guy, I'm not, I said, is that really the chair? Yeah, that's really the chair. And that was 2006 in Chicago. On that trip to Chicago, we went to, it was another museum stop where the woman was like, well, this is our Illinois section over here, and this is the bed where Abraham Lincoln passed away. And then she went on, I said, what? The bed. You can go and see it. You can take a picture of it. You can learn more about it. You can see how small it was. I think those are the little nuggets that start to add up over time, and you realize that travel really is incredibly magical. So I would tell you to go and visit Detroit. We're going to head off to Mackinac Island this summer. The Grand Hotel. Oh, love the Grand Hotel. Incidentally, that's Carlton Varney's hotel. Carlton Varney was the protege of Dorothy Draper, you know Dorothy Draper, The Color. Did you ever see that interview with Dorothy Draper? Oh, you should look it up online. It's worth seeing. Dorothy Draper gave a television interview with Edward Murrow. Okay, right? So Edward, now what I found funny about that is that Edward, of course, is in his chair, smoking, close to camera, right? So the camera's kind of shooting like this, and he's got this big screen. So they're doing this satellite interview with her in her apartment in New York City, and he is in New York City, but they're doing a satellite interview, which I thought was really funny. And she's up there, and he basically said, watch it. I won't do it any justice, but he said, when this use of color and all of these bold patterns and these stripes, and where did this all come from? Everything prior to this moment in time was very colonial Williamsburg looking. It had that sort of beige and the blue carpet and the sort of subtle color. And she said, I think you can trace it all the way back to when women in this country started wearing lipstick. That was her real answer. I was like, and of course, this 11-minute interview about color and pattern is all in black and white, which I also found to be rather funny. But nevertheless, so again, you talk about like the homestead, the Greenbrier, you go and you realize, within what? How long does it take to get to White Sulphur Springs from here? 3 hours? 3 or 4? 3. 3 hours. And that property's been around since 1778. There's 20 restaurants and lounges there. There's 300 culinarians there. Did you know that Chef Boyardee was in their culinary apprenticeship program before he moved to Pittsburgh and became Chef Boyardee? He worked at the Greenbrier. Of course he did. 26 presidents have visited there, like 11,000 acres. It just kind of goes on and on and on and on. The crazy governor over there. Anywho, so my parting words before we do, I would love to, we do questions? Can we do questions? I love questions. I don't know the answers to any of them, so it's even better. You can see me really tap dance up here. My parting words, somebody said this to me once and I really like it. Pack your bags for travel. Leave your emotional baggage at home. There, that's the best tip I can give you, okay? Questions. How do we do Q&A? Oh, I love it. See, this is how we do it. You stand up and ask.